G'day World Wide Web, Lew Dub with the world's favourite and most detailed Sydney Cup preview. On screen now you can see the date and start time of this year's Sydney Cup, and according to our expert meteorologists, we're actually going to have some dry weather on Saturday and most likely be racing on a soft 7 or thereabouts. If my graphics guy is doing his homework, we'll have on screen now the contents of the show, and by all means, if you'd like to just skip ahead to your preferred part of the show, go ahead. And okay, now starting off, we will take a look at the last 8 Sydney Cup winners and a little bit about their preparation. One thing you can pick up on is the influence of the chairman's quality as the key lead-up race. And note that 6 of the last 8 winners have carried 52 kilograms or less, with 55 kilograms being the biggest impost for a winner in recent years. Number 1, Gold Trip is carrying 59.5 kilograms and has barrier 16. It would be a history-making win. There are a few question marks around Gold Trip if we're looking to compare his spring campaign with the autumn. The most obvious is the amount of runs. Leading into the Sydney Cup, he's had 3 runs. Leading into the Melbourne Cup, he had 5. Then there's the margins. In the spring, he was never beaten more than 3.4 lengths. In this prep, his last 2 starts have seen him 3.3 lengths back, and in the 2,000 metre Randvet Stakes, 7.4 lengths back. The saving grace for Gold Trippers is that this prep he has only raced on good dry surfaces. He only met one good track in the spring, and while he wasn't disgraced in the Turnbull, he certainly has a fondness for soft or heavy ground. That's evidenced by the fact his only 2 career wins have been on soft tracks. Knight's Order, the defending champ, has 56.5 kilos and barrier 12. Just like Gold Trip, this fella excels on soft to heavy ground. When he won the Sydney Cup last year, his entire 4-race preparation was on heavy tracks. In the spring, he failed in his grand final, the Melbourne Cup, carrying 55.5 kilos and suffering under one of Tim Clark's worst steering performances. His prep this time around hasn't been as impressive. Like last year, he has had 3 races leading into the Sydney Cup, but this time it was 1600, 2000, then 2400, as opposed to 2000, 2400, and then 2600. With 2 of his races in the autumn being at weight for age, he's lumped 59 kilograms twice already. Now he drops down 2.5 kilos to 56.5 in the Sydney Cup. He'll get some soft ground this Saturday, and also to his benefit, he will get to take up his place as front runner. I see Knight's Order going pretty close again. He's had an 8th and 2 6ths this prep, but I feel his form has been disguised by track surfaces. Baron Samedi is carrying 55 kilos, which will feel like a feather to him, the 6-year-old gelding, but he is burdened with the cruel barrier of number 20. From the replays I've watched, this fella is very one-paced. If jockey Tom Marquand elects to go back, he will find it very hard to pass the entire field over the last 900 or 1,000 metres or so. Looking at his recent results, I think you can disregard the Dubai Gold Cup. He over-raced, had winkers on, was 4 wide for the entirety of the turn into the straight, and well, when he returned to Ireland, he finished a creditable 7 lengths from Kyprios, the horse that went on to win the Ascot Gold Cup and the Goodwood Cup and the Irish St Leger. So there was no shame in that. If he can settle close to the pace, his chances are boosted, but I believe if Marquand attempts to go forward, he will travel around the first bend at least 3 wide and maybe through the second turn when they go past the winning post for the first time. It's a very difficult task, and it would be a Herculean effort if Baron Samedi can win this race. Well, 6-year-old Stockman drops 4.5 kilos down to 54.5 kilos and has a handy barrier in number 5. But when I compare his form to last year, it just doesn't stack up. Last year he won the Group 3 Sky High Stakes. This year he was 2 lengths 5th. Last year he was 2nd in the Group 1 Tancred. This year he finished 5 3/4 lengths 8. You might say he had soft and heavy tracks last year and not this year. However, he did run in the Chairman's Quality 1 week ago on heavy ground and could only manage 3 lengths 7th. Yes, he drops in weight, but all of those that beat him home have a similar weight relief. Pass. Arapaho drops down to 53 kilos from 59 in his Group 1 Tancred win. He's in career best form, he has a decent barrier in 8, and the majority of his wins have come on rain-affected ground. The Tancred win 2 weeks ago was on good ground. The big question mark is the 2 miles. He had a crack at the Melbourne Cup last year carrying just 52.5 and on his preferred wet ground, but he didn't get the job done. He finished 11 lengths 11th, and that's despite a pretty cosy run at the back of the field. Horses like High Emotion, Stockman and Dashan Sweet Jr. were all in a similar position in the 2022 Melbourne Cup, yet they quickened and finished 3 lengths or more ahead of him. The only saving grace is that he was at the end of a very long prep. That commenced in April and saw him have at least one start through every month leading up to the Melbourne Cup. He's got 53 kilograms and barrier 14. He was one of the last horses to get a jockey allotted to him. He won this race 2 years ago, and while he was a little under the radar that year, his form this prep is not promising. Surefire, the 5-year-old gelding, carries 52.5, though I've heard that jockey Joe Moreira will be permitted to carry 53 kilograms. And anyway, he has the luxury of barrier 6. He's coming off a win in the Group 2 Chairman's Quality last week in heavy conditions. I believe a lot of that win can be attributed to the ride of Joe Moreira, sneaking up the inside on the turn into the straight. This weekend he'll be getting his preferred soft track conditions, but he actually tried his hand at the Sydney Cup last year, which, if you remember, was on heavy ground as well. He failed 13th of 19. Last year he entered the race as an 8-1 chance after a strong second in the Group 3 Melbourne Cup 3 weeks beforehand. I see a lot of parallels to last year, and I don't think he can cope with 2 miles at a solid tempo. Explosive Jack is carrying 52.5 kilos and has barrier 4. He's like Celino. He didn't race in 2022. He had a great year in 2021, winning 3 separate derbies and a 3rd in the Queensland Derby. But by the time of the 2021 spring, he was dead on his feet. He contested the very elegant Melbourne Cup and finished more than 20 lengths back. This prep, he showed some positive signs 3rd up when he ran 1.5 lengths second to Arapaho in the Canberra Cup on soft ground. What's interesting is that all of his derby wins were on soft ground too. Maybe he is the one that shocks us with a minor placing. Sir Lucan is running around with 51.5 kilograms. The 5-year-old gelding has unfortunately drawn gate 15 though. I imagine he will be able to snag a spot close to the speed though. He might be wide through the first turn with Nerve, Not Verve, King Frankel, True Marvel and even Ahmad inside him, all likely to push forward. He started this campaign well with an all-the-way win in the 2,000-metre Randwick City Stakes, but his next run in the Group 3 Melbourne Cup was underwhelming. He ran at a snail's pace, yet still got swamped on the line by a cast that weren't exactly all-stars. Finally, he tuned up with a 6-length 9th in the Group 1 Tancred over 1.5 miles. I don't think he's suited to staying races, to be honest. Torrens is scratched.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
You are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Do you think that Dr. Fauci intentionally lied under oath to Senator Paul when he vehemently denied NIH's funding of gain-of-function research?
I think there's no doubt that NIH was funding gain-of-function research.
Is it likely that American tax dollars funded the gain-of-function research that created this virus?
I think it did, not only from NIH, but from the State Department, USAID, and from DOD.
So, in your expert opinion, was the Wuhan Institute conducting gain-of-function research on
Absolutely.
coronaviruses? Thank you.
Dr. Redfield, did you agree, in your opinion, with Dr. Anderson's assessment at the time that this virus did look engineered?
It was very disconcerting to me. It looked like this virus was engineered.
In one sentence, can you provide a definition of gain-of-function research?
I think it's to take a pathogen and try to increase one of two things or both, to increase its transmissibility or its pathogenicity.
Has gain of function stopped a pandemic, in your opinion?
No, on the contrary, I think it probably caused the greatest pandemic our world has seen.
Here we're taking a quick spin around the 2-mile course at Randwick. Note that run to the first bend is over within 20 seconds, so it's about 300 odd metres, and you need to have got your posse or you'll be covering some extra ground. Don't be shocked when you see a few start peeling out wide down the back before they get to that second last turn. Riders are wanting to get within striking distance before the last turn. And finally, watch out for the rise at the start of the home straight. Cleveland, the 5-year-old Entire, is favourite and carries a lightweight 51 kilograms. Last year while racing in the UK, he won a handicap event carrying 57 kilograms over 3,700 metres. He didn't beat donkeys, he beat a horse called Coltrane, who went on to finish runner-up in the Group 2 Lonsdale Cup and the Group 2 Long Distance Cup, both over 2 miles. In the meantime, Cleveland himself ran second in the Group 3 over 1.5 miles and then 4 lengths 6, carrying 63 kilograms in the IRE Cesarewitch on soft ground. His one run in Australia 2 weeks ago in the Group 1 Tancred was promising, with him coming home over the last 600 metres half a length slower than Gold Trip, but he'll get an 8.5 kilogram turnaround in the weights. The major issue for this guy will be barrier 17. If he can slot in somewhere around midfield, one off the fence, he should win. High Emotion, the 6-year-old mare, will be getting around Randwick with 51 kilograms, but in the awkward barrier of 19. She caught everyone's eye with her barnstorming third in last year's Melbourne Cup. From the tail of the field, she ran a final 600 that was just 1 length slower than Gold Trip, but her last 400 was the fastest. She's had 3 starts this prep and hadn't done too much to excite in her first 2 runs that were on firm ground, though she wasn't too far back, finishing 3 lengths and then 2 lengths back. Her run in the Chairman's Quality did catch the eye though, with the mare running the fastest final 200 metre split. Robbie Dolan, the singing Irish jockey, will have a chance to add to the 2 Group 1s he already has. Ahmad will carry 51 kilograms and jump from barrier 10. Apprentice jockey Rhys Jones will be steering him. He's riding at 10% strike rate, so he's nothing to be sneezed at. But Ahmad, at 9 years old, he really has failed to live up to expectations here in Australia. He ran an eye-catching race in the early spring of 2021, but since then he's done nothing to excite. He had a holiday in 2022 with no racing. This prep he's had 3 runs, with the best being his last race, a 1.2 lengths third in the Adelaide Cup. Last year, Deshaun Sweet Jr. won the Adelaide Cup by 1.5 lengths before managing a 4.5 lengths third in the Sydney Cup. Ahmad does drop 6 kilograms from the Adelaide Cup, and the race actually rated very high on the Racing and Sports website. King Frankel, well, he's got the cosy weight of 50 kilograms and barrier 11. Regular jockey Tyler Schiller is on board, another apprentice, but look at him, riding at 12%. He's got enough early speed to get across early and find a position on pace. I thought this bloke's run in the Group 1 Tancred Stakes was phenomenal. He threw down a challenge to Knight's Order at the 850 metres and they slugged it out, with King Frankel finishing 1 length third. To me, that was the evidence he's a real stamina animal. In the Tancred, he carried 59 kilograms. In the Sydney Cup, he carries 50 kilograms. He's already won on soft ground and heavy ground since starting his career in Australia in the spring of 2022. He's a big contender. Not Verve will carry 50 kilograms and jump from barrier 2. This grand old mare is truly in career best form. She's only run over 2 miles once before, and that was last month when she fluffed the start and finished a neck second in the Group 2 Auckland Cup. She should have won. Last week she was third in the Chairman's Quality on a heavy track, carrying 55.5 kilos. She sheds 5.5 from that race, which is more than the 2 horses that beat her home. It's amazing to think she won the Chairman's Quality last year, but hadn't been nominated for the Sydney Cup. Perhaps last year was really her year. But don't rule her out. She's got a handy barrier and should find a place near the lead. Gin Martini is scratched. Timor, the Melbourne Cup winner, will be carrying 50 kilograms and has conveniently drawn barrier 3. Now I'm going to say that I think the Melbourne Cup form is fake form. From that race we've seen third placed Sir Lucan get demoralised in the Tancred, and Torrens, who finished 1.5 lengths away, was 6 lengths 11th in the chairman's quality. If you go back one race further, Timor ran 3 lengths third behind So Unusual and Youth Spirit. He carried less weight than Youth Spirit. He was into his 4th race of his prep. Then he wins a low rating Melbourne over 2400, suited to those on pace. I know he's trained by Chris Waller, but you can't perform miracles all the time. There is also nothing indicating that he will jump out of the ground on the soft to heavy ground. Alakahan is getting in with just 50 kilograms and has that awkward barrier of 13. He's had a light prep coming into the Sydney Cup, just the 2 starts. His run in the Melbourne was respectable, but racing on the pace, he had every reason to be there amongst the place getters. He's had 1 crack at 2 miles before, and that was last year's Sydney Cup. He finished 20 lengths back. The only difference this year is he's being trained by renowned staying doctors, Kieran Maher and David Eustace. They'll need to work some magic to get him home in the first 5. Pesto gets in with 50 kilograms and barrier 9. It's his first time beyond 2,600 metres at the age of 7. Since arriving in Australia, he's done nothing of significance at black type level. However, last year he won a benchmark 84 over 2,500 metres before running some minor placings in benchmark 100 and open handicaps over a similar distance. He sneaks into the Sydney Cup field with 7 races under his belt off a preparation that commenced in December. His last race in the chairman's quality is probably his best result in Australia. He finished 2.8 lengths 5th in a Group 2 and nearly matched the fast finishing High Emocean over the last 600. True Marvel gets in with the minimum 50 kilograms as well. He's got barrier 7. The 7-year-old is definitely familiar with the staying races. He's won over 3,800 metres on soft ground too, I might add. That was back in 2021. He hasn't won since. If you go back to 2020, he won over 2,600 metres on heavy ground with Kathy O'Hara on board, who rides in the Sydney Cup. It was a benchmark 64 though. His last start was a gritty 3.7 lengths, 10th in the Adelaide Cup, over 2 miles, carrying 53 kilograms. He won't be last, but I don't think he can challenge for the first 4, given we have a few classier and more progressive types. Okay, so my pick will be King Frankel, just over Cleveland. He should be able to settle within striking distance, and he's just going to have enough head start on Cleveland to see him off, in my opinion. Gold Trip would really be super if he could repeat what Maccabee Diva did in 2003-04 when she won the Melbourne Cup and then returned in the autumn to win the Sydney Cup. I don't think Maccabee Diva faced anyone at the level of King Frankel, let alone Cleveland. So Gold Trip, good luck if you can win the Sydney Cup. Feel free to add your own tip into the comments section. And also, before I go, as a little bonus to you all, please take a look in the video description there. There's a link to the Lew Dub Personal Best website where you'll find a Sydney Cup Silks printout. So if you've got some time, you can play around and do your own speed map to help you pick the winner. If you've got kids, maybe you can give them a little practice honing their fine motor skills with some scissors, cutting out each one of the runners. Anyway, good luck and enjoy yourselves during the holidays. Check the odds, pick a winner.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree. Where's your home?